Welcome to the Chris Levels Show, Politics and Prophecy. For the next hour, he will share with you his theme of living life based on principles and not feelings. It's time for a return to our Judeo-Christian roots of laws and repent from the progressive liberal philosophy of what's convenient and feels good at the moment. Join him as he uncovers and exposes the spiritual wickedness that is robbing us of our inheritance that Jesus Christ promised us as a nation if we are obedient to his ways. Here's the host of the show, Chris Levels.
Welcome. This is Chris Levels, and the show is named Politics and Prophecy. I am very happy to be with you today. If you would like to call in, the studio line is 810-866-3400. The toll-free line is 866-992-2275. You can send any comments, any questions to Politics and Prophecy. That's politics and A-N-D, prophecy at gmail.com. There's also my website, realityrevival.com, where you can get to know a little more about me and what's going on with our project that is starting officially on Monday. But today, we're going to get started here. First of all, we're going to deviate from the normal Wednesday routine of having a guest with us today. I decided that I really wanted to get into the series with what I'm doing as far as the so-called black leaders in our country. And also, it ties in because of the fact that today's guest, so to speak, is the, I don't know if it's honorable or whatever, Honorable Louis Farrakhan. We are going to get into him today. But before we do that, the reason that I'm doing this, part of the reasoning behind it is the fact that I am sick of the pass that has been given to people like Farrakhan, to Jackson, to Sharpton. Even now, Sharpton is down there in Arizona trying to get publicity with the illegal immigration and the fact that the state of Arizona has taken the responsibility and reins of their own safety and welfare to pass legislation that would make it tougher on illegal immigrants. Maybe I should say that again, illegal immigrants. And yet they're down there again, so Sharpton's going to get his turn on my show also. But today we're dealing with Farrakhan. So the fact that he is Muslim, and this is just really getting out of hand in terms of the Muslims and what they're doing in this country. If you can think back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, do you remember Muslims having this kind of influence in our society? What has happened? Well, today we're going to get into a little bit about that, and I hope you find the show interesting, entertaining, and educational. But first of all, I'm going to give you some food for thought about conservatives and liberals in this country, and let's see where you fit in that prism. And this is an explanation of how the conservative mind works as opposed to the liberal, recognizing that the term liberal thinker is an oxymoron. If you ever wondered what side of the fence you sit on, this is a great test. You see, if a conservative doesn't like guns, he doesn't buy one. If a liberal doesn't like guns, he wants all guns outlawed. If a conservative is a vegetarian, he doesn't eat meat. If a liberal is a vegetarian, he wants all meat products banned for everyone. If a conservative is homosexual, he quietly leads his life. If a liberal is a homosexual, he demands legislated respect. If a conservative is down and out, he thinks about how to better his situation. A liberal wonders who is going to take care of him. If a conservative doesn't like a talk show host, he switches channels. Liberals demand that those they don't like be shut down. If a conservative is a non-believer, he doesn't go to church. A liberal non-believer wants any mention of God and religion silenced, unless it's a foreign religion, of course. If a conservative decides he needs health care, he goes about shopping for it, or he may choose a job that provides it. A liberal demands that the rest of us pay for his. If a conservative reads this, he'll forward it to his friends so they can have a good laugh. A liberal will delete it because he's offended. Well, what side of the fence do you sit on today? And speaking about the Muslims, I'm just looking at something on the internet right now that says that now after they were successful in getting Franklin Graham booted from the Army's National Day of Prayer, or actually, I should say the Pentagon, now they're going after him again. They've demanded that he be booted from yet another National Day of Prayer service, prompting officials with the National Day of Prayer Task Force to condemn as ridiculous the idea that religious leaders should be excluded from public events because of their faith statements. The controversy began when the Army disinvited Graham, who is president and CEO of Samaritan's Purse and son of famed evangelist Billy Graham, from a prayer service at the Pentagon. Graham said his invitation to be honorary chairman at the May 6th event was revoked after Muslim members of the military complained about his description of Islam after the 2001 terrorist attacks as a very evil and wicked religion. Let me second that. Muslim activists then announced they were trying to get him barred from a National Day of Prayer event scheduled with members of Congress, too. Moves to exclude any member of this great family from this prayer event represent everything that is wrong with the agenda of political correctness that is rampant in our country, said Shirley Dobson, chairman of the task force and wife of Focus on the Family founder, James Dobson. Our national founders wouldn't have tolerated, and neither should we, she said. Michael Calhoun, director of strategic communications for the task force, said the day is part of America's heritage and belongs to all Americans. It provides an opportunity for citizens to pray voluntarily according to their own faith, and it does not promote any particular religion or form of religious observance. As a nonprofit organization, the National Day of Prayer Task Force has held an event at the Capitol for many years. So you can see that they get more emboldened with every success that they achieve. They want to completely dominate our society, just as they've taken over other societies, what they're trying to do with Islamification in Europe and how much trouble they're causing in France, in England, and basically throughout Western Europe. They have a purpose and agenda. They're moving alongside the progressives. We have a president right now that is, I'm just going to say it, if the man is not praying to Mecca 5 times a day, then he sure is sympathizing with him. So you can basically throw out the fact, anybody naive enough to believe that this man is a Christian, because there's not a Christian thought that flows through his head. But I tell you what, he probably does say Assalamu alaikum. So in case you don't know what dimitude is and how it fits into our society today, let me tell you, dimitude is the Muslim system of controlling non-Muslim populations conquered through jihad. Specifically, it is the taxing of non-Muslims in exchange for tolerating their presence and as a coercive means of converting conquered remnants to Islam. The Obamacare bill is the establishment of dimitude and Sharia Muslim diktat in the United States. Muslims are specifically exempted from the government mandate to purchase insurance and also from the penalty tax for being uninsured. Islam considers insurance to be gambling, risk-taking, and usury, and is thus banned. Muslims are specifically granted exemption based on this. How convenient. So I, Chris Levels, as a Christian, will have crippling IRS liens placed against all of my assets, including real estate, cattle, and even accounts receivables, and will face hard prison time because I refuse to buy insurance or pay the penalty tax. Meanwhile, Louis Farrakhan will have no such penalty and will have 100% of his health needs paid for by the de facto government insurance. Non-Muslims will be paying a tax to subsidize Muslims. Period. This is dimitude. Dimitude serves 2 purposes. It enriches the Muslim masters and serves to drive conversions to Islam. In this case, the incentive to convert to Islam will be taken up by those in inner cities as well as the godless Generation X, Y, and Z types who have no moral anchor. If you don't believe in Christ to begin with, it is no problem whatsoever to sell him for 30 pieces of silver. Sure, I'll be a Muslim if it means free health insurance and no taxes. Where do I sign, bro? I recommend sending this post to your contacts. This is desperately important. People need to know about it quickly. Have you heard about this summit Obama is holding this month in D.C. for the future Muslim business leaders in the U.S.? He wants to increase their ability to begin business opportunities in the U.S. for the Muslim community. Pretty soon we can relocate to the Middle East because all the Muslims will be here. So if you understand at all how the jihad works and how what they do once they get to be certain percentages of the population. If you don't know, you need to go and study it for yourself in terms of Muslim influence in a society and how they go about taking it over and the various degrees to which this happens. But, you know, between the fact of what happened with Trey Parker, Matt Stone, with the South Park founders that I talked about on Monday, the fact that they would have the nerve to threaten the lives of American citizens and the fact that American people are putting up with this is just really, really incredible, especially when you consider the fact that we are in Afghanistan. And who are we fighting? You can call them Taliban. You can call them insurgents, you can call them whatever you want, but they are Muslims. In Iran, who is threatening to nuke or annihilate Israel and us as the great Satan, they are not communists, they are not socialists, they are Muslims. When you think about the fact of what's going on in Saudi Arabia, how they are building and funding madrasas being built all over the world, and exporting their brand of Wahhabism into the United States and into Western Europe. But yet, not one church can be built in Saudi Arabia. 15 of the 19 hijackers in September 11th were from Saudi Arabia. Yet, because of our dependence on oil, because of our dependence on them and the debt that they hold of our economy, we do and say nothing. This is ridiculous. It has to stop. And unless we rise up and say no more of kowtowing to these religious fanatics, and not every Muslim is a fanatic, I understand that, but just the fact that if you sit here and you know what people in your religion are doing between the honor killings, between the like the Palestinians, where they make characters like Mickey Mouse into anti-Semites who talk about beheading Jews and teaching their children that Jews drink blood and drink Palestinian blood and things of this nature. This is ridiculous. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about Louis Farrakhan and share from the book and expose you to some facts about him, not opinions, but we're going to give you a reason why when you hear that name, the flesh probably crawls a little bit. So we'll be back after these messages.
Chris will be right back with more Politics and Prophecy on Victory 600. Stay tuned.
If you would like a CD of today's show, please send a donation of $10 to G&L Communications, Post Office Box 13171, Flint, Michigan, 48503. Again, that's G&L Communications, Post Office Box 13171, Flint, Michigan, 48503. Thank you for your generosity and have a blessed day. There have been many of you that have heard the Kangen water commercials on this show and have visited the H2O Revival site and requested information. Well, we are going to do something special for you. On May 15th, we are hosting a free barbecue along with a presentation given by 6A member Don Gordon. This man has spoken all over the country about Kangen water and done many demonstrations. Email me at politicsandprophecy@gmail.com if you are interested in attending. The price is free, but we must know in advance how many visitors to expect. On May 15th, you will get to meet and speak with me also as we enjoy a few hours of fun and fellowship together. Email me at politicsandprophecy@gmail.com for more information and to RSVP. Or call G&L Communications at 810-407-6893. That's 810-407-6893.
In Japanese, Kangen means return to the origin. Kangen water is produced in your home when simple tap water has been filtered, then restructured through ionization. During this ionization process, several important things happen to alter the structure of the water, making it more useful to the body. Kangen replaces water-soluble acids with calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and trace minerals to create great-tasting alkaline water. It aids in the displacement of acids through the body's normal channels of elimination, including the kidneys, bowel, lymph, and skin. Nature has produced miracle waters in several places around the world. The native people in these areas all enjoy long and healthy lives. The secret to these waters is that they are clean, alkaline, microclustered, and antioxidant rich. For more information on how you can enjoy these health benefits and have great tasting water, go to h2orevival.com. That's h2orevival.com.
Now is the time to visit internationally recognized wellness advisor Dr. Silvio J. Cazzetto and his team at his Burton location at G4150 South Saginaw. With centers throughout the area, many of his locations have chiropractic, yoga, massage, acupuncture, herbal healing, and more. With years of training in nutrition, yoga, chiropractic, and life counseling, our techniques and healthcare systems are years ahead of the rest. Come to a better way of natural healthcare. Call 810-742-1880 for an appointment now. That's 810-742-1880.
Now back to Politics and Prophecy with Chris Levels here on Victory 600 WSNL.
You are back with Chris Levels on Politics and Prophecy. The studio line is 810-866-3400. Toll-free line is 866-992-2275. You can email your comments to politicsandprophecy@gmail.com, as well as go to the website Reality Revival, where you can hear archived broadcasts of Politics and Prophecy. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen on the 15th of May. As you've heard from the commercials, there's going to be a water presentation, but it's also going to be a grand opening for Project Reality Revival. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about the potential for helping those in this community that are unemployed, underemployed, people that have criminal backgrounds, that have problems getting jobs, as well as single mothers and the elderly on fixed income. We're really looking forward to making a difference in Genesee County and a big impact in the lives of the citizens here that deserve better, and who, if you want better, we're going to make a way for it to happen for you. So right now, we're going to get back to Mr. Louis Farrakhan. And again, this is an excerpt out of the book by Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson called Scam: How the Black Leadership Exploits Black America. And I think it's really, I don't think it's a coincidence, because I had no idea that the program before me was going to be talking about defending your faith against Muslims in terms of the ideologies, but it fits right in with what's going on here in the theme today. So, Chapter 8 is called Louis Farrakhan, American Hitler, the Rise of America's Biggest Bigot. In October 1995, I watched as hundreds of thousands of weak black men attended Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March in Washington, D.C. Farrakhan has risen to fame under the guise of wanting to help black men take charge of their lives and the lives of their families. The, quote, minister, unquote, entices his listeners by giving them a little truth about history and about slavery in America. Once they are emotionally involved with Farrakhan's version of, quote, truth, unquote, he then reveals his true motive, which is to blame the white man, especially Jews, for everything. All the reasons blacks can't make it, all of their problems, are due to the blue-eyed devil, the white man in America. The Jew, according to Farrakhan, comes into the black community, takes all of their money, and brings it back to his own community, thereby exploiting blacks. Do people realize that it is normal for a business person to, quote, set up shop, unquote, wherever possible to earn a living and to take his or her profits back to wherever he or she wishes? Is there a law that says a person must spend his or her earnings in a particular area? After hearing this theme repeated over and over, blacks are blaming not only Jews, but also Koreans and Hispanics. Should we be surprised to learn that a year before the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles, emissaries of Farrakhan's Nation of Islam had come into town to preach hatred against Korean businessmen as exploiters of blacks? These prejudice-filled blacks should admit that they are jealous of the ingenuity of these people who so easily set up businesses and earn a living when blacks, by and large, are not able to do so themselves. Instead of spending so much energy hating merchants and businessmen of whatever race or background, blacks should try to learn from them and put their principles into practice. If this were done, blacks would achieve the same standard of living as any other race. It is this motivation to justify weakness that Louis Farrakhan uses to confuse and confound people in order to get them under his own authority. Some folks say Farrakhan is a godly man, a man sent by God. They also say that Farrakhan preaches self-reliance. Well, so did Adolf Hitler. History tells us that Hitler invoked the name of God and used, quote, truth, unquote, which he perverted to get control of the German people. Once Hitler got their allegiance, he was able to convince them of almost anything. He persuaded them to give up their weapons, and then the atrocities, too brutal to describe, began. The rest is history. In my opinion, Farrakhan rose to near Hitler's status that fateful day in October of 1995 on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and we, the American people, are going to live to regret it. The power that Farrakhan gained that day in our nation's capital will be too much for the American people to handle. It will be worse than the outcome of the O.J. Simpson trial in serving to separate the races and to bring hatred into the hearts and minds of black people. Before this march, many blacks viewed Louis Farrakhan as a teacher of hate and a manipulator of discord. But now, many of these same people are convinced that Farrakhan is a strong black man who loves black people and who has their best interests at heart. This also includes so-called Christians who used to be quite leery and suspect of black Muslim ministers and their teachings. Now these, quote, Christians, unquote, have been very much converted by Louis Farrakhan. The status Louis Farrakhan gained the day of the Million Man March has been parlayed into a position which allows him to meet with evil world leaders like Muammar Gaddafi. Meetings like this can only be taking place for one reason: to unify the worldwide militant Muslim movement. To what end? Does anyone really think this man's ultimate aims are peaceful? It's obvious to me that the Nation of Islam has always been a subversive and violent organization. The bizarre religious beliefs and dangerous goals. The Nation of Islam began in the summer of 1930 when a man called himself Wallace Farad Muhammad arrived in Detroit. He claimed he had just come from Mecca with a mission to teach blacks the truth about the white race. He taught blacks to prepare for the Battle of Armageddon, which he claimed was to be the final confrontation between blacks and whites. Blacks would win this battle and take over the world. Muhammad began to gather a large following with his preaching of this basic belief system. Allah is the one supreme God, the white man is the devil, and blacks are the cream of planet Earth. From 1930 to 1933, he recruited 8,000 followers. One of these followers was an unemployed auto worker named Elijah Poole. Poole was the son of a Baptist preacher / sharecropper who had grown up in Georgia. Poole became a fanatical follower of Muhammad and rose quickly within the ranks. He changed his name to Elijah Muhammad and became the chief minister in the Nation of Islam. In June of 1934, Wallace Farad Muhammad mysteriously disappeared from Detroit, and Elijah Muhammad became the head of the Nation of Islam, a position he held for more than 40 years. Wallace Farad Muhammad passed this strange theology along to Elijah Muhammad, and these beliefs have remained fairly consistent up to the present day. The theology of the nation consists of the following. 1. In addition to Allah, there are many lesser gods, and these gods are actually men. Elijah Muhammad, for example, taught that Wallace Farad Muhammad was one of these gods. These gods are also subject to death. 2. The universe began 78 trillion years ago when a black god created himself from a single atom, which formed itself out of nothing. According to Elijah Muhammad, he was the only one in the whole entire dark universe. He had to wait until the atom of life produced brains to think what he needed. How long was that? I don't know, brothers, but he was a black man. A black man. For the past 66 trillion years, the universe has been run by a council of 24 black gods. 3. People, I am not making this up. This is for real. One of these black gods, named Yaqub, became evil and created the white race only 6,000 years ago. He created this white race by allowing only light-skinned blacks to mate and by killing all black babies. He died after 150 years, but his evil successors continued his experiment which lasted more than 600 years on the Isle of Patmos. His followers eventually produced the white race. In this process, they removed morality and decency from the white man. When the white race eventually left Patmos, they began to wage war against all other races on the planet. At some point during this early history of the white race, some of them tried to change back into black men by reverse breeding. This is how gorillas and monkeys came to exist. Number 4, the white race was allowed by the Black Council of Gods to rule the earth for only 6,000 years. This period supposedly ended in 1914, but Elijah Muhammad taught that the council extended the deadline in order to allow more time for the black man to rise up. Muhammad taught that once the black man had awakened to his true nature and purpose, he would remove the white man from the face of the earth in the final battle. Muhammad wrote, "The black man is the true owner of the earth. Now the God of justice has risen up to deliver the rule back to the black man and give him a place in the sun that justifies his ownership." 5. There is no life after death or concept of salvation in Nation of Islam theology. Salvation consists only in adhering to the teachings of Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad. These 5 points sum up some of the bizarre beliefs that energize members of the Nation of Islam and which guide Louis Farrakhan to this day. Muhammad hated America and loved its enemies. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941, Elijah Muhammad rejoiced and refused to register for the draft. He was sent to prison for 3 years and got out in 1946, resuming leadership of the Nation of Islam. The FBI was so distrustful of Muhammad and his activities that it carefully monitored him for decades, especially as he eventually developed a close relationship with Fidel Castro and Marxist dictators in Africa. Muhammad was also a serial adulterer who frequently had as many as 7 different adulterous relationships going on at the same time. Through these adulteries, he sired 13 children. FBI surveillance tapes reveal Muhammad telling these women that they were the beneficiaries of his, quote, divine seed, unquote, and lying about his intentions to marry them. Now we come to Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan. Malcolm X, who has been immortalized in film and through his book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, joined the Nation of Islam in 1948 and quickly became a major force within the movement. His autobiography describes his eventual disillusionment with Muhammad after learning of his leader's adulterous relationships. He also traveled to Mecca and realized that Muslims came in all colors, including white. His hatred of whites diminished over time as a result of this trip. Malcolm X had been a mentor to Louis Farrakhan, who eventually replaced him as head of the Harlem Nation of Islam Temple. Malcolm X became viewed as a traitor to the nation for openly discussing Muhammad's adulterous affairs and for rejecting racism. Malcolm X began calling Muhammad a racist and a phony. The nation's, quote, God, unquote, didn't appreciate the criticism. Upon learning of Malcolm X's betrayal, Muhammad told his followers, "It's time to close that necktie's eyes." In December 1964, Louis Farrakhan wrote an article for a Nation newspaper, Muhammad Speaks, stating that Malcolm X was worthy of death. 2 months later, 3 black Muslim assassins approached Malcolm X while he was giving a lecture at Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom, shooting him 15 to 16 times and killing him. Not to mention, this is a side point, but one of those men was just granted parole after 45 years, and now he will be out on the street, but he was the only one that admitted actually shooting him out of the 3. One of the men convicted of the killing was Muhammad Abdul Aziz, who spent 19 years in jail for his role in the assassination. Interestingly enough, in 1998, Louis Farrakhan hired Aziz to be the new head of Mosque No. 7 in New York City. Aziz was also made Farrakhan's regional security chief for the East Coast and was given the job of reviving the Fruit of Islam paramilitary arm of the nation. When Elijah Muhammad died in 1975, his son, Warith Deen Muhammad, took over as head of the Nation of Islam. He began changing the nation's theology to conform more closely to the teachings of Islam, and he changed the name of the group to the World Community of Islam. Later, he changed its name to the American Muslim Mission. Muhammad eventually disbanded the group altogether, and his followers were absorbed into the Islamic movement. Louis Farrakhan resurrected the Nation of Islam in 1978 and reinstated its security force, a paramilitary group that is frequently staffed by former prisoners. Since 1999, the Nation of Islam has managed to get an estimated $20 million from the federal government to provide security services for public housing projects throughout the United States. The Fruit of Islam Guards have provided security for these projects in Chicago, Los Angeles, Pittsburgh, Washington, and other cities. The efforts of the nation in public housing projects serves as an excellent way of recruiting new haters into the movement. Farrakhan's close encounter of the third kind. Farrakhan claims to receive instructions for running the Nation of Islam from the spirit of Elijah Muhammad. On October 24th, and before I go further, if he's receiving instructions, you understand now after reading those 5 points what this man stands for, Elijah Muhammad. On October 24, 1989, Farrakhan gave a speech at a press conference at the J.W. Marriott Hotel in Washington, D.C., in which he described a vision he had of an encounter with Elijah Muhammad inside a flying saucer on a mountaintop near the town of Tepoztlan, Mexico. This close encounter supposedly took place in 1985. Farrakhan says he was invited to enter the flying saucer, which he describes as a wheel, which transported him higher into the sky to link up with the mother wheel. He claims that once inside the mother wheel, he began hearing the dead Elijah Muhammad speaking to him and giving him updates on international politics and what role he was to play in linking arms with black racists and Islamic radicals throughout the world. According to Muhammad, Farrakhan had a job to complete on Earth, and once he had accomplished it, he would be allowed to return to the mother wheel for a face-to-face meeting with Muhammad. Farrakhan's belief in UFOs is not new in Nation of Islam theology. Muhammad taught that this mother wheel had existed for more than 60 years. Writing in Message to the Black Man, Muhammad states, "The present wheel-shaped plane, known as the mother of planes, is 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile and is the largest mechanical man-made object in the sky. It is a small human planet made for the purpose of destroying the present world of the enemies of Allah. The cost to build such a plane is staggering. The finest brains were used to build it. It is capable of staying in outer space 6 to 12 months at a time without coming into the Earth's gravity. It carried 1,500 bombing planes with the most deadliest explosives, the type used in bringing up mountains on the Earth. The very same method is to be used in the destruction of this world." And we're going to take a break and come back with more of Louis Farrakhan. But this is Chris Levels, Politics and Prophecy. Studio line is 810-866-3400. Toll-free line is 866-992-2275. We'll be back after the break.
Stay tuned for more Chris Levels with Politics and Prophecy right here on WSNL Victory 600.
In 1931, the odds of getting cancer were about 3,000 to 1. But today, women have a 1 in 3 chance and men have a 50-50 chance. So what happened? What's gone wrong? In the name of science, drinking water has been chemically changed from natural and safe to harmful and dangerous. Hello, my name is Michael Kinnett, and I'm a molecular hydration specialist, and today we have a healthcare crisis of degenerative disease, like acid reflux, diabetes, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, cancer, arthritis, and many more that are getting worse every day. Your body is 70% water and needs to feed 80 trillion cells every day to flush out the acid that's getting you sick. Bottled water, tap water, and filtered water just can't do that. Your body needs fresh, alkaline, microclustered Kangen water the way nature made it 1,000 years ago to help your body balance itself back into homeostasis and reverse or prevent the degenerative diseases that have taken over our good health. To learn more about Kangen water and to get your free Kangen water samples, visit H2ORevival.com. That's H2ORevival.com today and experience what Kangen water can do for you.
Out-of-sight mobile self-storage cuts your work in half. Why rent a truck, pack it, unpack it into storage, and then repeat the process when you take it out? With mobile self-storage, you simply pack and unpack once. We deliver one of our weatherproof units to your home or office, up to 5 at a time for the same delivery price. Other services include local, out-of-state, and specialty moves. Purchase your packing supplies from us, too. Call Out-of-Sight Mobile Self-Storage today, 248-322-9781. Visit BetterWayToStore.com.
You receive $30 off delivery when you mention Politics and Prophecy. Hurry while this offer lasts. Recently, I was traveling to Port Huron for a speaking engagement when my vehicle experienced mechanical trouble. I was on I-69 in the middle of nowhere. When I called for a tow truck, a company quoted me nearly $300. I called T&L Towing, and Larry, the owner, charged $110. His son owns Cut Rate Auto Repair, and the next morning got my car in and quickly diagnosed the problem. If there are any future repairs, I will drive to Lapeer and hand the keys to Larry and his staff. They have expertise in foreign and domestic. Make sure to mention you heard about Cut Rate Auto Repair on Politics and Prophecy when you take your car to 1313 West Imlay City Road in Lapeer, or call them today at 810-245-8888. That's 245-8888. And if you need a tow, call Larry at T&L Towing at 810-798-3393. Again, 798-3393.
You're listening to Politics and Prophecy with Chris Levels on WSNL Victory 600.
Welcome back to Politics and Prophecy. It's Chris Levels, and today we are looking at Louis Farrakhan and his influence upon the Nation of Islam, as well as the spreading of hate, true hate, not what the liberals want to cast anytime we disagree with their progressive methods call hate. The fact that we disagree that we as conservatives believe that if you're going to be in this country, you should be here legally, that we're not anti-immigration, we're anti-illegal immigration. The fact that we're not anti-tax, we believe in representation and taxation. And the fact that if we send representatives to Washington, they are to do as we ask them to do in our best interest while adhering to the Constitution. So let me get back to where I left off here about the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Farrakhan claims that the dead Elijah Muhammad had warned him that President Reagan was planning a war and that he was to hold a press conference to warn Americans about this war. After the vision faded, Farrakhan says he realized that the war was going to be against his friend, Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. As a result of this vision, he says he joined forces with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party and 15 other groups of blacks, Native Americans, Hispanics, and whites to oppose any attack on Libya. At his press conference in 1989, Farrakhan claimed that the job he had been given to do by Muhammad was to warn blacks that President Bush Sr. and his administration were planning a war against blacks. I am here to announce today that President Bush has met with his Joint Chiefs of Staff under the direction of Colin Powell to plan a war against the black people of America. The Nation of Islam and Louis Farrakhan, with particular emphasis on our black youth, under the guise of a war against drug sellers, drug users, gangs, and violence, all under the head of national security. In 1996, Farrakhan embarked on a world friendship tour, which included stops in 5 nations described by the U.S. government as sponsors of state terrorism: Libya, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, and Syria. During this tour, it was reported that Farrakhan repeatedly denounced the U.S., calling it the Great Satan while in Iran. Why did we let this man back into the country? But anyway, during Farrakhan's visit to Libya, Gaddafi pledged $1 billion to encourage minority political action in the U.S. According to Gaddafi, American blacks could set up their own state within the United States with the largest black army in the world. Gaddafi also noted about Libya: our confrontation with America used to be like confronting a fortress from outside. Today, we have found a loophole to enter the fortress and to confront it from within. Of course, Louis Farrakhan was the, quote, loophole, unquote, Gaddafi was referring to. Farrakhan recruits many of his hateful followers from our nation's prisoners. These individuals already have a problem with authority, are predisposed to engage in violent acts, and constitute a ready-made military force. This force can subvert our nation with hundreds of terrorist acts when directed to do so by Farrakhan. Or you could take that a step further, getting outside the book, and the fact that this president that's sitting in the office has declared that he's going to have a civilian military force that is going to be just as powerful, just as funded as our national military. So you can take that from there. Farrakhan, the Beltway snipers and the 5 percenters. The arrest of Beltway snipers John Muhammad and John Lee Malvo by law enforcement authorities in Maryland in October 2002 revealed a frightening linkage between Farrakhan and the alleged killers. As police learned more about John Muhammad, they began connecting the dots between this killer and the Nation of Islam. Muhammad was a security guard for Farrakhan during his 1995 Million Man March in Washington, D.C. Muhammad had also been inspired to action by the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack upon our nation and was known to have made anti-American statements to his friends when he lived in Washington state. The racial and political hatred that Muhammad and Malvo had for the United States was also apparently linked to a little-known offshoot of the nation known as the, quote, 5 percenters, unquote. And if you don't know anything about 5 percenters, you might want to take a look at these people and what they believe. Neither the Nation of Islam nor the 5 percenters have been implicated in these shootings. The link between the Beltway snipers and the 5 percenters was noted in an Associated Press report on October 26, 2002. AP reported on the contents of the sniper letter that was left behind by the killers on a tree behind a steakhouse in Ashland, Virginia. The letter contained numerous clues to the identity and religious beliefs of the killers. The letter referred to the author as God. It also included the phrase, "Word is bond," a statement used by the nation of gods and earths, another name for 5 percenters. The headquarters of this group is the Allah School in Mecca, located in New York City. The 5 percenters believe that the black man is God and women are to be called earth. They also believe that they are the 5% of the population who are truly righteous and understand spiritual truths. 5 percenters say that blacks are the original people of the earth, that they created civilization, and that whites, otherwise known as devils, have deceived the world, causing people to worship false gods. A number of hip-hop artists have been influenced by the 5 percenters, including Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Gang Starr, and others. And yet, the fact that hip-hop was actually originated by a 5 percenter, that we allow this in our churches, call it gospel hip-hop and all of this mess. One hip-hop group, Sons of Man, is blunt in its lyrics about its 5 percenter goals. In Can I See You, they rap, "Carry 45s in these last days and times. An original black man with a plan to run these devils off my motherland." Ominously, Public Enemy rapper Chuck D has called hip-hop music the black CNN. Law enforcement officials are deeply concerned about the influence that the 5 percenters are having in our nation's prisons as they recruit members into their religion. In essence, these groups are simply gangs of anti-white, anti-American racists who believe that a coming race war between blacks and whites will result in a black victory. I consider Louis Farrakhan to be a serious threat to our national security and a subversive influence in our society. It is his theological belief that a race war is inevitable and that blacks will emerge victorious. He has political alignments with some of the world's most famous terrorists, and his Nation of Islam is nothing less than an anti-American army that is poised to help destroy our nation. I believe that if people do not wake up, and let me just stop there. I watched a movie this weekend. It was called The Spook That Sat by the Door. It was released in 1973. It got very little attention because the white establishment was very fearful after the turmoil of the 60s, late 60s, that this movie would have on people. But it is something, as I read this, and as I have read this material, and then watched that movie this weekend, that this is something that's very real when you look at what Farrakhan is all about. So as I continue here, I consider Louis Farrakhan to be a serious threat to our national security and a subversive influence in our society. It is his theological belief that a race war is inevitable. So he says that I believe that if people do not wake up and soon, we will have a race war in America, one that will cause bloodshed on a scale that we have never seen before. In my speaking to and interacting with many blacks, it is surprising to see the number of people who have actually bought into the views of this evil man, and their loyalty appears so strong they seem willing to do whatever Farrakhan bids, which is very frightening. Yet our nation's black preachers continue to ally themselves with this American Hitler. Their mutual hatred of whites and America is what links them together in their common cause against our nation. If a man teaches hate, he is your enemy. At the Million Man March and Rally, I heard many speeches by those who were not friends of the black family and black community. We have already lost 2 generations of blacks to gangs, dope, promiscuity, teenage parenthood, truancy, welfare dependence, and crime, in large part due to this evil defeatist, we are the victims of racism by whites/Jews philosophy. If we do not wake up, we are going to lose our entire country. We must wake up so that we can see the enemy wherever the enemy is, regardless of race or color. There was a time that I, too, was under the spell of this type of black leader. I have come to understand that our problems are not between races, but between good and evil. And good and evil can come from any person. Until we become aware of this and learn to know ourselves, we will not be able to do that. If we cannot see error and wrong in a person without regard to race or color, then our enemy will be seen as a friend, and a true friend will be viewed as an enemy. That is now taking place in the black community. Black people tell each other that the blacks should not criticize a fellow black in the company of whites. Those blacks who do have a clear vision and state the truth plainly, let me say that again. Those blacks who do have clear vision and state the truth plainly are called sellouts, traitors to the cause, or Uncle Toms. We have been made to feel guilty if we dare to disagree with black ministers. Somehow we've been convinced that even God will punish us if we question ministers and these black, quote, leaders, unquote. This is a very successful strategy to control blacks and keep them in line. Without scrutiny or criticism, the leaders can remain leaders and continue to get away with their lies. This method of deception that has served to keep us confused victims has been in existence in the black community for the past 40 years, entirely too long. I believe God wants us to question our leaders as well as ourselves. I believe these people are false prophets, hypocrites, bag of bones, and deceivers. These, quote, leaders, unquote, know the truth, but they will not tell it to the black community because they want to keep this community in ignorance for their own personal power and gain. And that's it for Louis Farrakhan. And I wish he was listening. I would like him to call in and see what he has to say about that, to see if he could refute anything. Because one of the things dealing with conservatives and liberals is that a conservative wants to deal in facts. He wants to deal in things that are not opinion, that are not of emotion, but facts. And liberals have a way of just taking words, skewering them, demonizing people, and this is really getting bad. I mean, they went from, if you remember, with these bailouts. In fact, let me just back up a little bit, because one of the reasons, or one of the things that caused me to see who Barack Obama was, or that made me question who he was his association with Farrakhan. When Farrakhan came out and was allying himself with him and Obama wouldn't distance himself from him, I knew that there was a problem. You can judge a man by the character of his friends. And this has been told over and over and over again. But yet, most of the black community, even though I give credit, there are some that are waking up, that are waking up to the truth about this man, about this progressive movement, but yet not enough. Obama is calling on African Americans, women, Latinos to come together and promising that there's going to be more of them. And by that, he means that he's going to grant amnesty to these criminals that are in our country right now so that he can maintain power. So we have to stand up. We have to recognize what this man is truly about and the people that surround him, support him, and have foisted him upon us. So we're going to come back for the last segment of this break. You are welcome to call in at 810-866-3400. Toll-free line is 866-992-2275. We'll be back after these messages.
Stay tuned for more Chris Levels with Politics and Prophecy right here on WSNL Victory 600.
There have been many of you that have heard the Kangen water commercials on this show and have visited the H2O Revival site and requested information. Well, we are going to do something special for you. On May 15th, we are hosting a free barbecue along with a presentation given by 6A member Don Gordon. This man has spoken all over the country about Kangen water and done many demonstrations. Email me at politicsandprophecy@gmail.com if you are interested in attending. The price is free, but we must know in advance how many visitors to expect. On May 15th, you will get to meet and speak with me also as we enjoy a few hours of fun and fellowship together. Email me at politicsandprophecy@gmail.com for more information and to RSVP. Or call G&L Communications at 810-407-6893. That's 810-407-6893.
Hello, my name is Joe. I was introduced to Kangen water about 2 months ago. I was given 3 gallons of the water with this request: drink this water and tell me what you think, and see if changing the water you drink will change your life. I drank the water, and boy, was I in for a surprise. Number one, I liked it, the way it tastes, but it was different, I thought. But it's just water. Within a few days, I was not feeling the soreness that I felt in my joints. My skin condition, psoriasis, was improving. My energy level, which was normally good, reached another level. I actually stopped drinking sodas without even thinking about it. And in the 2 months, I have been changing the balance of the alkalinity and acidity levels in my body. I've seen the benefit of drinking magic water. Try Kangen water. I think you'll love it. Find out what it can do for you.
To enjoy Kangen water and have your own life-changing experience, visit H2ORevival.com. Again, that's H2ORevival.com. Your health will never be the same.
Here is Chris Levels with more politics and prophecy here on Victory 600 WSNL.
Hi, you're back with Chris Levels. And my friend Julie over here operating the keyboards or whatever these things are called. I'm not the engineer here, so she's the wonderful person that helps me on my show to get this information out to you. But we have talked today about Louis Farrakhan, and last week, or actually Monday, it was Jesse Jackson, and Sharpton's going to be next. But I just want to take time to really talk to you right now about the fact that what's going on in Arizona and Puerto Rico. I was listening to Mr. Glenn Beck this morning as I came in. He was talking about an important vote that's going to be taking place tomorrow in regards to the statehood of Puerto Rico, or a vote that could lead to statehood for Puerto Rico, which is going to add more people to our tax rolls. It could. But the important thing is to ask the question, is this what the people want? Or is this just another move by the progressives to bring more people under their control for them to stay in control? I've read some things that lead me to wonder if we are actually going to continue to have elections in a way that we have known for a couple hundred years, or are we going to be, as Obama wants, fundamentally transformed as a country? We have a tendency in the United States to have a certain bit of arrogance that things that happen in other countries can't happen here. And if that mentality was based on things 50 years ago, I would probably have to agree. But now you have people that we're basically dividing into a society where you have producers and you have entitlers, or those that believe in entitlements. They think that other people are supposed to provide for them. They have no work ethic. They have no vision. They have no dream. They've been told in our government indoctrination centers known as public education, and especially even at the colleges, they've been, instead of getting educated, they've been getting indoctrinated. Instead of learning to think for themselves, they've learned to regurgitate what the progressives in our society want them to know. So now we're at a place where you have a lot of people that believe that a human life is of no more value than an animal life. You have people that, despite massive amounts of evidence, still want to believe in the hoax of global warming, and yet, they refuse to accept truth. They refuse to understand history. They refuse to allow light to come into their minds and into their hearts. So one thing that sustains me is the fact that the voice of the Lord is full of majesty, and that comes from Psalm 29:4. And the fact that the voice of the Lord is going to be heard in matters on this planet, no matter what we say about it. And I guess it's important that we try to be on the right side of that, and that we are able to hear his voice, because the Bible speaks that the sheep know their shepherd's voice. And so I would, before I leave today, just encourage you to make sure that you're in a position to be able to hear when the voice of the Lord, who speaks with majesty, speaks to you into your heart and mind. And even if you're in a place right now where you're not sure about the lies that you're being told, just go to God. He will give you the truth, as the Holy Ghost will lead you into all truth and understanding. So that's what I encourage you to do in these dark times that we're in right now, is to go and make sure that your salvation is sure and that you are in right standing with the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, tomorrow we have Brother Irvin Baxter, who will be in this spot with politics and religion. But for those of you that are confused, it is being sponsored by Politics and Prophecy. And unlike the disclaimer, which I do understand why they have to do that for my show, I totally endorse what Irvin Baxter says on his show. So that's that. On Friday, we'll have Issues Party by Party with U.S. Taxpayer of Michigan Chairman Bill Moore. And I'm not sure. I like to be surprised as far as what we're going to talk about that day, but he will be here. So with that being said, I would just like to encourage you to have a blessed day. Make sure you give praise and glory to your Creator and not worship the creations around us. And that you come back and listen tomorrow as well as on Friday. So until then, may God bless you and keep you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Politics and Prophecy. We trust this broadcast has been a blessing to you, and it is your monthly support that guarantees its continuation on WSNL. Please write to them today at G&L Communications, P.O. Box 13171, Flint, Michigan 48503. And remember, when you write them, be sure to mention you heard their broadcast on Victory 600 WSNL.